that is not giving men an out for not experiencing like the full breadth of who they are, because I actually agree with you that I think it actually does cultivate a strength. But I think understanding the reason why men do that and why what's in our bodies and in our psychology to do is an important like place to understand at the ground level.
Well, and it's a virtue. Being able to turn that valve is a virtue. Hello and welcome back to Raising Men. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Walton. He's a husband, a father, and a founder of a coaching program called Daring to Dad. Ryan's work calls men to live courageously, lead intentionally, and father from a place of integrity. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on Raising Men.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad to be here. So grateful for the work you're doing and putting out there for men and fathers. It means a lot. So thanks for asking me to be on.
I really appreciate you being part of it. Now, okay, so I'm going to ask the $1 million question.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we coast?
Why do we coast? We coast because it's easy, because it's easier to avoid than to confront. You know, one of my favorite psychologists and thinkers, Carl Jung, talks about that the greatest challenge we ever face and battle we ever fight is the inward one, to get to know ourselves and to challenge and push ourselves. And that's truly the difficult battle we face. And so it's easier to avoid. I also think we are part of a culture and a society and a market that profits off men being numb.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. So how do I know, how do I know that I'm doing it? What is the difference between coasting in an unhealthy way and just kind of like resting on my laurels a little bit after a victory?
Yeah. It's awareness. So I think coasting in life, when we there's a deep knowing, right? There's a feeling that we are not living the life that we set out to live. There's a deep knowing inside of us that feels that something is off, something is wrong in the stillness, right? In the early mornings, the late nights when we're alone with ourselves. I also think, often coasting comes from a lack of awareness of what is leading us, right? So, so often in our lives, we are being led by our feelings, by our emotions. It's driving us to do certain things that we're not even really aware of. Yeah. So we find ourselves addicted. We find ourselves addicted to alcohol, porn, weed, sex, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And we find ourselves driven to these things because our lives are filled with these feelings, these emotions, these experiences that are unaddressed, right? And so going back to avoiding, we avoid them by doing these other things, right? Yeah. So it's not that a night of binging Netflix, right, is a bad thing. Yeah. But often we are pulled into that out of a place of like avoiding something else. It's what I do as a coach, and I think the responsibility that we have as humans, as men, is to become aware of the forces in our lives that are driving us to behave or coast in a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. What are those things, and how do we become more mindful, more aware of these things that are impacting us and driving us forward?
Yeah, it's almost, what I'm hearing from you is that it's intentionality. Like, okay, if you're meaning to rest between bouts of success and you're doing that on purpose and that's what you're doing, and there are guardrails around it, then that's fine. Yeah. But if you're falling into the trap of addiction, or you're falling into one of the most pernicious things I think about social media is it feels like you're doing something, but it's actually avoidance.
Yeah. 100%.
And those are the worst possible things you can do.
Well, it's kind of like walking the dog. Who's walking? Are you walking the dog, or is the dog walking you?
Yeah.
And often these things we have surrendered the agency that we have in our lives, the power we have to make these decisions consciously,
Mhm.
to being driven by um, our insecurities, our shame, the things that we're avoiding in life, and we numb out by these other things, right? And
Yeah.
it's just much easier to do that. And again, when we're in a container or in a culture that profits off us being numb, right? You mentioned social media,
Right.
right? They want that these companies, these platforms want all of your time. They want you to numb out. They want you to doom scroll,
Yeah.
right? And so it feeds into, I think, a place where we can easily slip into what you refer to as as coasting or avoidance, right? So
Yeah, I think that's a really useful way to frame it because, I think a lot of people, our American culture really um, rewards and admires iconoclasts.
mhm,
And there is nothing less iconoclastic than sitting doom scrolling
mhm,
Twitter or Facebook. And
mhm,
yet I think a lot of people feel like they're fighting the machine somehow when they're doing that.
mhm,
But they don't recognize that no, no, no. Those people, that's the way they make money. They
yeah,
make money getting you scrolling.
yeah,
And that is its own version of the man holding you down or whatever it is that you think you're fighting against.
yeah,
That's something to consider.
yeah,
And, again, if if there's an intentionality to it, then that's one thing. But
right.
if there's but if it's a pitfall
Mhm.
that you're falling into with spikes on the bottom of it, well, then you need to be careful.
Right. And we have a responsibility as well. Like you and I who are a part of this, we create content, right? To
Yeah,
be consumed, and we put that out there.
right.
And we have to always be aware of even our time and doing that in a conscious way, and we're trying to put some meaningful things out there. But yeah, you're right. And it's a message that, one, I have to embody. It's also a message that I send to my kids about, like, hey, don't become a slave to this, because
Yeah,
it will enslave you.
yeah,
It's designed to create an addiction, right? And companies leverage this. The I think the porn industry leverages this. A
yeah.
lot of these kinds of things create an environment for men in particular, because I know that that's kind of what we're talking about, to find it really easy to numb out and to coast, to distract ourselves.
Yeah, the model that I think about with respect to that is that, we have 2 brains in us. I call one of them the Conan the Barbarian brain, and I call the other one the Sherlock Holmes brain. And in in men and boys, especially the Conan the Barbarian brain, the Sherlock Holmes brain develops much, much later. It's the
Hmm.
prefrontal cortex, and it develops much, much later in boys and men than it does in girls and women.
Hmm.
And and sometimes it doesn't ever take control at all. And these, these companies, what they're trying to do is hijack you and keep you in Conan the Barbarian brain because that's where you're just reacting and you're not actually taking the signals that that brain is telling you and applying it to your values and making an intentional decision. You're just doing the
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it keeps us too. Another layer is that it keeps us out of relationship.
Yeah.
It keeps
Yeah.
us
It's
online
the
and
empty
out of
calories
relation.
version of a
Right.
relationship.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There are genuine connections in relationships with people via like social media and things like that that are good.
I agree.
That's how you and I are here right here in this moment, right? Is
That's
because
right.
we met through an online environment,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that I say that. But I do think it also has the ability to keep us out of real in-person relationships with other men, which is, I think, one of the key elements in the healing of men in their lives, is being in community, in relationship with each other, to be seen, to show up with other men in an authentic, meaningful way. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, the ways that we numb out are often done in isolation. And isolation is, I think, the man killer. And so
Yeah.
I think, yeah, again, this isn't we can't just simply blame these, you know, companies and these algorithms. Although that's part of it, we have to be able to look at ourselves as well and how we're interacting. So it's not just one answer.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
mean,
layer of things. Yeah.
blaming Facebook is fine,
Yeah.
but it's not actionable.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Facebook is a pernicious force that is ruining men's lives.
Yeah.
Let's go
Yeah.
with that. Okay,
Yeah.
so what? What are you going to
hmm
do about it?
Yeah. I
Um,
think
eh,
everything is holding those things in the balance.
yeah.
And, we have to come to a point in all of our lives where we take ownership of the way that we are showing up and take ownership of our lives. And yes, are there systems in play in the world right now that are hurting people? I tend to work with a lot of just working class men in the world, and yes, there are economical, social, political things happening in the world that impact us, right?
Mhm.
And we have to recognize the systems and structures in place,
Yeah.
and we cannot let that absolve us of the responsibility we have to take the next step and take ownership of our lives. So both are at play, and it's not just one or the other. It's kind of a both and.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognize that.
So we talked about coasting. We
hmm
started off talking about coasting. Let's talk about the opposite. What does daring look like in everyday fatherhood? And what
Yeah.
is yeah, what does daring look like?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And that's changed for me, like over the course of my time as a father and growing as a man. I'm in my 40s now, and what showing up looks like, what leaning into fatherhood, to my own life looks like. Um, it is a dare because, as we've said before, it is easy to avoid. It's easy to coast. It's easy to
Yeah.
settle. It's easy to check out. Um, but to lean in, and to face ultimately like yourself, I think is the greatest thing a man can do.
Yeah.
When it comes to fatherhood, which is what I talk a lot about, the men I work with, we get into some of like the tactical aspects of being a dad, right?
Mhm.
Conversations with kids and rules and structures and this and that. But a lot of what we face is the man himself and uh his own reaction, his ability to move and um with his own nervous system and reaction, unpacking the relationship that he's had with his dad and with people. It's more about us becoming the kind of man that we know we're capable of and modeling that for our kids. And so stepping into that, leaning into that is to dare. It's to risk,
Yeah.
um, because it means facing the parts of yourself that you would rather avoid, the
Yeah.
parts of yourself that you don't want to see, that you don't want others to see. But in reality, other people are seeing them because those things find their way out of us anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, but yeah, so that's what I think what it means to dare to dad, and I think it's uh, an important mandate because I think there is a mandate on men and fathers in the world
Mhm.
today. We do not live in the same world that our fathers and our grandfathers lived in. Um, you know, something that I talk about often is I had this conversation with someone last night. It wasn't until you know the '60s that men were even allowed into the delivery room when it came to a child being born. Right. For
Right.
a long time, it was like, nope, men, you stay out in the lobby, and it was in women, you're allowed in here. Right.
Right.
And in a single generation time, it's like there's an expectation that when your child
Yeah.
is born, that you're there. You're
Right.
a full engaged birthing partner. You go to the classes, you show up in the room and set the tone. And so there's a big shift that's happened, and there's a call to men to step forward. We're tired of the narrative of the disengaged, disconnected dad. We're
Okay.
with the world has changed a lot for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And so I think the call to men is to lean in and to dare ourselves to be better than maybe what has come before us. We can appreciate that, and we can, to a certain degree, but we can also say, no, we want to do better. We want to do more. We want to be engaged in all aspects of life and our own humanity when it comes to being a man and being fathers. So that's what it means for me to lean in and dare to dad.
Yeah, I have this friend who he recognizes this is just from observation, but it seems to me that he recognizes the fact that we always put off the thing that is kind of unpleasant that you don't want to do.
Mhm,
And so you can see him when he encounters something like that, he just does it right away.
mhm,
And so it's like he recognizes that the reflex is to put this off and then just stick it over in a corner somewhere and come back and address it when you're ready. But instead of doing that reflex, he's trained himself to do the opposite of that reflex.
mhm.
And I feel like that's what we need to do. The easy thing is to rest. The easy thing is to coast. And we need to train ourselves to when we feel like coasting, we need to leap into action instead.
Yeah,
We need
yeah,
to dare instead.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the key to anxiety is action, right? So
Yes.
I think leaning when you're anxious, action is the remedy. I mean, I say this to my 13-year-old son all the time when it comes to like homework, right? Oh my gosh, I don't want to do this math assignment or whatever. It's like it will literally, like, he's brilliant. It will take
Yeah.
you 10 minutes, and the amount
Right.
of time that you've spent worrying about it, complaining about it, you could have been done by now, right?
Yeah.
But
Why are
uh,
you signing up for
right,
this anxiety?
right, but I do the same exact
Me
thing when
too.
it comes to, like, little small tasks. I'm like, "Why is everything in my body not wanting to do this thing?"
Yeah.
But when we move through it, that feeling of, like, being done and accomplished feels really great.
Yeah.
Um, and there are times to rest, right? There are times to do that, but going
Yeah.
back to the beginning of our conversation, it's about, like, are we doing that consciously? Are we
Mhm.
being aware? Are we doing it with intention, and are we moving into those times with, intention? So, yeah, for sure, taking action is a huge part of, um, healing, growing, and moving through anxiety.
I've read a really good tactic for dealing with that, which is okay, don't commit to doing the whole thing. Just commit to doing it for 2 minutes. And then
Mhm,
once you're in
mhm,
2 minutes, then you can decide, okay, after 2 minutes you can quit or you can keep going.
yep.
And the vast majority of the time you'll keep going.
Yeah. Like
And
we
there you go.
we we yeah, we paralyze ourselves sometimes because we can't do everything, we do
Right.
nothing. And so
Yeah.
breaking it down can be really helpful. And that's
Yeah.
where someone like a therapist or a coach and someone outside of you can help you and offer those kinds of perspectives to help you break down your goals into those kinds of tasks. Like I coach Little League. We do the same thing when it comes to a kid hitting, right?
Yeah.
And baseball is a very complicated game.
Right.
And like hitting is complicated, right? There's all sorts of things. There's your lower body, your upper body, your hands, your eyes, your head, your shoulders, everything that you do to get it into the right position to hit the ball. If you start talking to a kid about every single thing and he's thinking about all the different parts of his body, it, phew, right?
Yeah.
But if you begin to break some things down one thing at a time, and that's what a coach does. So in the
Mhm.
same way, a coach can help you begin to move the needle in areas of your life by giving you some of that perspective that it's hard to have on our own because we get overwhelmed. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I had an experience yesterday with my boy um about that exact thing. And so he's decided that he wants to get into golf and he's only 6.
mhm,
And but so we're leaning into it. My wife's getting into golf. I hate golf. I have hated golf my entire life and I'm starting to get into it and starting to
yeah,
really enjoy it also. And so he and I decided to go to the driving range yesterday. And I started off by like trying to explain to him all of the mechanics and all, here's how you got to stand and here's how you swing and here's how you hold the club and here's
mhm,
how you do this and here's how you do that. And I started seeing him get frustrated. I was like, this isn't fun for him. This, like, he just wants to hit some balls.
yeah,
And so I went, you know what? Here's how to avoid getting hurt. And here's how to avoid hurting other people.
yeah,
Go hit some balls.
hmm
And here was the crazy thing about it. I would sit there and I had just bought this driver, and about 75% of the time I would hit the ball and it would just go off in some crazy random direction. It's very frustrating. I was getting all mad at myself and I was
Mm.
expressing my anger there. But then about every once in a while, I would hit the ball and it would go perfectly straight and it would go 300 yards, just would
Yeah.
sail forever. And it felt so good. And what I did in that moment is I acted too cool for school. I
Yeah.
just was, yeah, that's the kind of golfer I am. But that's not true. The kind of golfer I am is the guy who sprays balls all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Meanwhile, my son was out there and he was spraying balls all over the place. And he would spray a ball and he'd put another one down, and he would hit it and spray a ball and then put another one down. And then he would hit one and it would go 10 feet in the air and would, it'd land like 20 yards out there. And
He's
he
having the
was the
time of
most
his life.
excited I've
He's
ever
having the
seen him.
time of his life. Yeah.
He was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And he's out there doing that. And he had way more fun going to the driving range than I did, because he was having the time of his life the 10% of the time that he hit the ball perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was miserable. I was just miserable the 90% of the time that I was hitting it poorly. And I was like, there's a lesson here.
Yeah.
I've got to do something. I've got to do something about that. And I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your feedback about that.
We were talking a little bit before this show started about like the vulnerability of joy.
Yeah.
And that at some point in our lives, joy becomes this thing that we hide.
Yeah.
As men.
Yeah.
And that we are afraid to express. And I think it's because, if you were to sit, and a great meditation is to just connect with a moment of joy that you had as a child, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you had one. I know not everyone's lives are the same. But when I think back to my childhood and joyful moments, there's a depth there and something very, very deep within me, and where we do need to grow up and mature, and we initiate from boyhood to manhood. What we often do, though, is completely cut off sometimes this ability to just have joy.
Yeah.
And we encounter it with our children, and they have a way of reminding us about that joy. And sometimes that reminder can be frustrating for us. We go, oh, how, we all of a sudden see ourselves. We see ourselves in that moment of like, why am I not having a good time right now? And he's having the time of his life. That's frustrating.
Right.
Because we have, in that moment lost connection with the joy of just of being, and not performing.
Yeah.
Not having to produce something, right? And it's an incredible thing, and I think that's one of the magic pieces of fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And being around kids is this reminder of what it means to be like a kid and to have joy. And that takes conscious effort, to sit with our kids and to play games, to, just jump in. I think that's why I love with my kids, like watching some of these like old movies, or getting into like things like, Star Wars or like Marvel stuff, because when I step into that world with them, I get to step back into being a kid again for a bit and just love it to love it.
Yeah.
It serves no purpose for me or anything like that other than just joy.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think we as men, as fathers, need to cultivate a sense of being able to, express our joy.
That's so true.
Have a good
Joy
time.
isn't cool.
Yeah.
Joy isn't cool, or wasn't cool when I was growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
what a gift
Mm-hmm.
that we can give to our sons.
Yeah.
To free them of that
Yeah.
mindset.
Yep.
And we can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. I can
Yeah.
cultivate that. And, when we were at the driving range, I kind of suppressed it a little bit in him.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to make so much noise. I didn't want him to disturb other people.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's something to that. I don't
Sure.
want him to disturb other people, but by the same token, I don't know. I need
Yeah.
him to feel the joy too.
Yeah.
And frankly, I need to be learning from him.
Hmm.
And I need to be experiencing the joy rather than hitting that perfect ball and being too cool for school. I should feel the joy. And not only that, I should be helping other people feel joy.
Hmm.
How would I feel if I hit that perfect shot and I'm looking at it and even though I'm being too cool for school and somebody behind me said, "Man, that was an amazing shot."
Hmm. Yeah.
That would make my week.
Yeah. For sure.
And yet I've never done that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think of doing that.
Yeah.
Why?
Hmm.
Why can't I cultivate that in other people? And other men especially? Well, and that's
Yeah. I have one of my good buddies lives in Nashville, and on a number of occasions, I have felt like I've had experiences in life that are bringing me joy, and I'm just keeping it in. And
yeah.
I can feel it like in my chest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's one of the men in my life that just, I can just completely be myself, and I'll call him like, Ben, I need to just radiate with you for a bit. Could you hold my excitement? And could you just like can we just and I'll just call and I'll gush on something.
Yeah.
And it's so important, right? Because I we have spaces like that as men that are like culturally appropriate. Like we're talking about sports. The sports
Sports.
field is one of those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
we score a touchdown and we spike at the end zone and we do the dance, and there are those moments that are kind of culturally acceptable when it comes to
Right.
joy. But what about
Yes.
other things? What about the business idea that you have? What about the joy of watching your kid do something great? What about a relationship and maybe someone that you're falling in love with? What about something
Absolutely.
that something that you're learning in school or you're growing and you're excited about? I think sometimes those areas for men, we would tend to like, oh, I don't want to get too excited about that. I don't want to share that. Like, oh man, like, because maybe when we were a kid, we shared excitement about something. We got really excited and someone was like, "Oh man, you're gay," or whatever. And so we have these really dumb, like cultural things around being joyful
Yeah.
that limit our, um, uh, we limit ourselves from being seen,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, cultivating joy, man, that's a,
Yeah. And I mean,
you know,
think about what you would do if your son had some success, hit a
hmm
home run, right?
yeah,
And was feeling joyful about it, was bouncing up and down.
hmm
Everyone was hugging him and stuff like that. And someone came and stole that joy from him
yeah,
somehow. Like
yeah,
said
yeah,
something that made him feel bad about it or say, "Oh, well, if you were really good, you would have hit it over the center fence instead of the right
yeah,
field fence," or
hmm
some crazy thing like that, right?
yeah, hmm
How would you feel about that person?
right,
What would you do as a protective instinct as a father? What would you do to somebody who stole that moment from your son? And
yeah.
yet you and I steal those moments from ourselves constantly.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
we need to be able to cultivate that. And you know what? That's part of being courageous. That's
Mhm.
part of daring
Yeah.
in the way that you describe it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think being able to, as men, experience the full spectrum of like emotions, right? Versus often what have been the culturally acceptable norms for men,
Right.
to experience, to be angry and to be joyful, but only in certain areas.
Yeah.
To allow ourselves the full breadth of the human experience, to be seen and known as humans first, right?
Right.
And I think that is an invitation for men right now. is where I think sometimes there's a message out there that men are somehow being uh, stripped of some of these traditional roles that they play.
Yeah.
I actually see what we're experiencing right now as an opportunity for men to
Hmm.
both be those things and so much more, to
Right.
be fully human and to experience the wide range of the human like experience on this planet, to tap into all parts of ourselves, our joy, our anger, our grief, our pain, our hopes, our fears, like all of these things, um, in a really, really powerful way. And so, yeah, all these things to lean into those areas, maybe that we haven't always been comfortable leaning into, is where the daring bit comes in.
Yeah. What are some of the tactical things that men can do to help retrain themselves to have a bias towards action, or to reflexively dare instead of coast?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll use the word that I don't love this word because I have sometimes historical baggage here, but accountability
Yeah.
is a big part. That's where other being in a group or space with other men is where it's at.
Yeah.
It is where it is at, Sean. So, to be around other men who are helping push you forward, not in a loving way. Men who are for you, who want your success,
Yeah.
where you can show up, right? And that's a huge piece. Like I
Yeah,
said,
like you're a tribe
yeah,
and you're
isolation is the man killer,
yes.
guys. And so if you're listening to this, find a group. It doesn't have to be anything. It could be small. If you don't have one, start one. Like, be around other men who inspire you, right? I say this to my 13-year-old. You are an average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
So be around some other men. There's a lot of great communities, on even if it's virtual, start somewhere. I mean, it's best in person, but even online, be
Yep.
around some other guys and get some accountability in your life. That's number one. Um, you know, Number two is being able to be honest with yourself. Even those spaces, showing up in the men's group, working with a coach, working with a therapist, is only as good as you are honest. So take an inventory. There's some great questions you can ask if you're feeling like you're stuck or feeling like you're coasting. One of those
Yeah.
questions is, what am I avoiding in my life? So if you're a journaler or anything like that, these are some great like meditations. What am I avoiding in my life? What am I pretending isn't heavy, but really is,
Mhm.
right? And um, what is one thing I can do today to begin to move the needle? What's one thing I can do? You know? Um,
I mean,
so
I
I mean,
think I think if we all woke up every morning and we asked ourselves those 3 questions,
yep, exactly.
just
Yeah.
imagine how powerful you'd be in a month, in a
Hmm.
year, in
Yep.
5 years.
Yep.
And you just ask yourself those 3 questions every day. That's it. You wake
Absolutely.
up in the morning, ask yourself those 3 questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think another one could be, what have I not? Where am I not telling the truth? Is another great question.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
where am I
or or
lying to
or
others and
hearing the truth.
myself?
I
Yeah.
think that, I one of the things that I feel has come out of our kind of hyper online culture these days is that we're losing the ability to encounter criticism
Hmm.
in a healthy way.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like anybody who criticizes you is your enemy in every way, and we have to
Hmm.
we have to fight that.
Yeah.
And that creates a feedback loop where, okay, if you're going to react violently towards me if I give you criticism, then I just won't do it. It actually costs me to give you constructive feedback.
Hmm.
And if you don't accept it well, then I won't give it to you.
Right.
And then you end up in a situation where literally nobody is willing to show you your ass.
Mhm.
And I got news for you. Your ass is hanging out.
Yeah.
Nobody can read the label from inside the bottle. You
Mhm.
need people to tell you what it says.
Yeah. I
And if
would
you
yeah.
can't
Yeah.
accept that with grace,
Mhm.
it is a problem for you. You're going to look around and you're going to be at rock bottom, and there will be nobody there for you
Mhm.
because you've driven them all away.
Yeah. There's something really, really powerful about a man who can stand and listen to feedback, and hold that with, um, patience and perspective and understanding. It doesn't mean that even if the feedback is off.
Right. It might be wrong.
Yeah.
Then, okay.
But how many but and especially I would say in relationships, right? You're in a relationship with someone and someone has some feedback.
Yeah.
That is a powerful man. That's a very attractive man to, I think, to women and partners,
Yeah.
is a man who can hear feedback, listen to it, and get curious. Oh gosh,
Totally.
we can probably do a whole episode on the the power of curiosity in a man and getting curious and staying curious. But that's a really, really powerful thing to talk about is getting feedback and standing in it, listening to it, adjusting where you need to. Huge. hmm
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of the as a father, sometimes the harshest feedback we can get is from our kids,
So, yeah,
who can
they
be
will be
really
tough.
bluntly honest, and even the feedback that they don't say, but that you begin to notice in their lives,
Yeah.
and the feedback that you're getting as a parent, can be really, really hard, and we can be hard on ourselves. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways we can receive feedback as men, but to stand in it, to hold it, to get curious about it is a really powerful skill to develop.
I remember this episode that happened to me with my boy. He was, yeah, he was about 3, and he had just recently been potty trained, and he and I were going. I like to fly gliders, and we were going to the glider port, and he used to love to go with me. But there aren't any good bathrooms in the glider club, in the glider port, and so we stopped for breakfast, and so at the restaurant, I wanted him to poop before we left the restaurant to go to the glider port, because we were going to be at the glider port for a while, and I didn't want to run the risk that he had an accident. And so I had a lot of pent up frustration about like making sure that he poops.
Mhm.
So we went in the bathroom, and he didn't want to sit there, and he didn't want to poop, and he didn't feel like he had to. And I knew he had to. He'd just eaten. Like, I knew he was like, if he just sat there for a couple minutes, it would come
Yeah.
out and it would be fine. And I ended up getting really upset, and I started yelling at him.
Mhm.
I was so frustrated. It was all pent up, and I probably had some other stuff going on. And he's like yelling back at me, and he says, "I'm scared." And I'm
Mm.
screaming in his face. I'm like, "What are you scared about?" And he goes, "I'm scared of you."
Mm.
And this is one of the most shameful things I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Mm.
And I realized, yeah, he's scared of me right now about going to the bathroom.
Mhm.
And I just sat with that for a second, and I said, "I'm so sorry, man. I am so sorry." And I said, you know what? Let's just go. We're okay. It'll be fine. And if we need to stop, we'll stop. And if we need to go to the bathroom at the glider club, we'll go to the bathroom at the glider club. It'll be okay. And I'm
Mm.
really, really sorry. But man, I mean, I will remember that on my deathbed
Mm.
as one of the biggest, like, if I could take that Mac, I would. And you know what? He probably doesn't even remember it.
Mm. Man, thanks for sharing that story. That's a vulnerable share, and I'm I've had those moments, and I'm
I
sure
think we all
probably
have.
anybody listening has had those moments.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I understand like the feeling. I think the important piece of that is no, none of us are going to be perfect. We're all going to have these moments of where we misstep, where we allow our whatever was happening in your world in that moment, whatever was driving your agenda to have him do that right then and there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we could probably explore like what else is going on in your world and in your in that moment.
Right.
But I think the important piece and the takeaway that I would say here is the repair,
Yeah.
right? Um, and the importance of repairing in parenting and in our relationships with our kids is that often that doesn't happen. And so
Yeah.
being able to follow up and to be able to work through that, to apologize, you know, and to learn and to grow, that your kid will remember
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
maybe the moment was scary,
Yeah.
but he's also going to remember how you sought to learn and grow and apologize and admit when you're wrong
Yeah.
and to self correct. That is equally as important.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking back on it now, uh, I just recently had a conversation with a guy named Ryan North, and he said in their family they have a specific formula that they use for apologies,
Mhm,
and um and part of it is first of all you say I'm sorry, and you say the specific thing that you're sorry for, like I'm sorry I yelled at you and made you feel scared,
mhm.
and you ask for forgiveness. And I wish I'd done that. I mean, like, I would feel better now had I leveraged that
Mhm.
in that moment. And even if he wasn't ready to forgive me, in time he will be. And
Because that's true. I mean, sometimes that maybe the moment they're not there yet. We're not there
yeah,
yet, you know. And
yeah,
so,
and that's
yeah,
that's okay. Then
Mhm.
let's check back in a couple hours. Like, let's see
Sure.
where we are.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was man, but yeah, but I'm glad he gave me the feedback, right? I mean, going back to
Yeah, you're
you
right.
know,
That was direct
we get
feedback.
coached
Yep.
from them
Uh
sometimes,
huh.
and
We do.
I'm glad he
Hmm.
told me, and I'm glad he felt like he could. In spite of the fact that I was in his face, I was screaming at him. I'm glad that he felt like he could say, "I'm scared," and that's not the appropriate way to be. Like, you're not being the dad you wanna be, is basically what he's telling me.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it hit me right between the eyes, and I'm really, really glad he did that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a really, really powerful story to describe. And we're constantly getting that.
Yeah.
And I again going back to the power of being a man who can receive feedback. Also, the power of a man who seeks it out. Right? The power of a man who constantly wants to grow and develop. I think that's a powerful tool in a relationship. I'll ask my kids sometimes, like, "Hey, in when the moment is right, how can daddy? Is there a way that daddy can do better with you, or what would you change?
Mhm.
Where are you maybe having a hard time with dad? What can I do um to help you better. Do you try to keep the questions really simple with kids, but it's also an
Yeah,
important tool in relationships. Hey,
yeah,
where am I not seeing you? Hey, where can I how can I be a better service to this relationship, this partnership, this love, whatever it is. It's a
yeah,
really powerful thing to do.
yeah, yeah,
Thanks for
I
sharing
mean
that story, man. It's a great and powerful picture of getting feedback in the moment and the way that our kids reflect back to us in a really powerful way.
thanks, that's kind of you to say.
Yeah, I mean, fatherhood, I think it can, why I'm in this work and doing this, fatherhood can be one of the greatest containers
Yeah,
for our formation as human beings, as men. And it's really powerful.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that way.
Mhm.
How do you think we can help cultivate this reflex for daring in our sons?
Hmm. Um, Resiliency, being teaching kids to be resilient, to believe in themselves and their
Mm,
ability to do difficult and hard things.
yeah.
It's sometimes easy to want to just go out and clear the path before them, but to allow them to struggle. I have a phrase that I use with people with kids is to don't steal the struggle. The struggle is a gift.
Yeah.
And so seeing our kids seeing our kids struggle can be an incredibly difficult thing.
Yeah.
Um, but to allow that is to help them cultivate and to build resilience. So that can be on the sports field, that can be in the classroom,
Yeah.
that can be relationally. Um, when my kids are like fighting and arguing, how much do I allow them to struggle through that and to build and repair on their own versus how quickly I step in.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's easy to do that. I think I'm going to make a statement that I know is kind of a general one, but I think it is mostly holds true. That I think dads do maybe this a little bit better than moms,
Right.
is to allow like the kids to take risks, right, and to get out there and to develop some resilience. But I think it's something that
Yeah.
we can continue to be mindful of. So when it comes to daring and leaning in, also to allow us our kids to feel right?
Yeah.
In your bathroom moment, to welcome your son's fear and distress and to not shame him for it and to experience like
Yeah.
that moment is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And so I think those are some things that we can do to build a sense of daring and leaning in with our kids. And maybe the most important thing after saying all that is modeling it. Like
That's for sure.
w-
Yeah. It,
when
it always starts with modeling.
my kids have seen
Yeah.
me through some really difficult things.
Yeah.
I'm divorced and went through a divorce, and my kids had a front seat to my grief and
Yeah.
saw me have evenings where I would break down and saw me at have seen me at some of the lowest points of my life. They've also seen dad get back up on his feet.
Right.
They've also seen dad heal and grow. And all of that and modeling a resiliency, modeling what it means to lean in and to pick yourself back up and to move forward is probably the most powerful thing that we can give to our kids.
Yeah. You talk about the way our kids coach us a little bit. I had another one of those situations with the boy. One of the ways that I deal with difficult things is with humor. That has
Hmm.
always been something that we
Hmm.
joke about is gallows humor or whatever. And um and so when my son was upset and he would cry, I would try and make him laugh.
Hmm.
And one day he says to me, he goes, "Stop it, Dad." He's laughing, he's trying not to laugh, he's trying to cry.
Hmm.
He goes, "Stop it, stop it." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Just let me feel what I feel."
Hmm. Hmm.
I was like,
Wow.
"Man, there's a 4-year-old, he's schooling me." And he
Yeah.
was so right. And my wife called me out on it as well,
Hmm.
after that, and I was like, "You know what? You're right. Boy, you are 100% right
Yep.
about
Yeah.
that."
Yeah. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a powerful thing to allow the kids to, we have a saying in our house that feelings aren't right, feelings aren't wrong, feelings are
Yeah.
feelings, and all
Yeah.
feelings are, there's a classic line, parenting, all feelings are acceptable, all behaviors are not. But when it
Yeah.
comes to feelings, is allowing all of that in, to model it, to, yeah, and kids notice our reaction to their emotions and
Right.
what it and get a real deep sense of what is acceptable and what is not. And
Right.
when we think back to our own experience as kids, we can probably tap into feelings that were more welcome than others. And it's probably in direct correlation with how we experience those today as adults. And so all that is definitely stuff to be mindful of as we navigate with our kids.
Yeah. I feel like the way that I grew up, it was it was all about suppressing your feelings and about, soldiering through and all of that.
Mhm.
And, I mean, That's not the worst advice in the world, I guess, but it's really maladaptive, and especially in our modern world, you can be so much more powerful, um, if you let yourself feel that, and
Yeah.
you can work to it's
Yeah.
like the metaphor I like to use is, who's the stronger boxer? The guy who has an impenetrable defense that, you can't get a punch in, or the guy who doesn't need to have a defense because you can just wail away as hard as you want and it doesn't even affect him.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of tropes about men these days and suppressing emotions and thinking, hearing exactly what you just said. And I think when we dig under the surface, a lot of really there's a lot of reasons why that is, right? And the history of men and what men have been called to do in society, and the expectation of men to be kind of the protectors,
Yeah,
right? Men historically have been the ones that go to war and do some of the toughest jobs. We expect,
right.
you know, who's going to run into the burning building and save like the women and children, right? I mean,
Yeah,
these are just kind of ideas that are out there. It's like the men,
yeah,
and so with that expectation, culturally and historically, in our genetic makeup and in our bodies, is this sense that, you know what, I might have to make a decision with my body that's going to require me to actually shut off what I'm feeling about it in the moment.
mhm.
So that valve, right, to turn off and on what we're feeling has to sometimes happen really quick.
Yeah,
And that is not giving men an out for not experiencing like the full breadth of who they are. Cause I actually agree with you that I think it actually does cultivate a strength. But I
yeah.
think understanding the reason why men do that and why what's in our bodies and in our psychology to do is an important like place to understand at the ground level.
Well, and it's a virtue. Being able to turn that valve is a virtue.
Yeah. We,
But
we, we want that. We want that from
yeah,
men in certain, we want them to be these anchors, these rocks,
right. It's part of part of
in the
masculinity is
chaos.
being able to control that valve. But
Mhm.
part of masculinity is also having it be in the appropriate position.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
100%.
I like that.
Yes. Yeah. So I think,
Well,
yeah, just understanding that. But yeah, I agree that vulnerability, and like when it comes to mental health, mental health is something that we hear a lot about. Mental health, what I take that to mean, and maybe this is helpful for guys, is mental resilience, mental toughness,
yeah,
mental stamina.
yeah,
Right? Maybe those words might be more helpful for men, is to think about like, hey, how mentally flexible are you so that in your mind, in kind of your thing, you are able to adapt and bend and move, and that's less breakable,
yeah,
right? So yeah.
yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Well, I always love to finish these conversations by putting people on the spot.
Hmm.
So if you could leave people listening with one operating principle or one guiding principle for daring fatherhood, what would it be?
I would say leaving with one principle, maybe the most important thing when it comes to fatherhood, masculinity, is daring to take a really honest look at your own life
Yeah.
and leaning into the areas that you're avoiding. I say this as someone who did that for a really, really long time. And what we hide in the basement of our lives finds a way out.
Yeah.
And often it's doing it when we're not even noticing.
Yeah.
And so to face what Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talks about, our shadow selves, and be able to face the things in our lives that are tough, that are scary, is the bravest thing you can do as a man, as a father, and you, your family, your community will benefit from it and will thrive because of it.
I think that is an excellent operating principle. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. I really, really appreciate it. And to everybody listening, to every parent listening, let's do our best to just dare a little bit more, and not just for ourselves, but for our boys and for our children and for our spouses and partners, and just everybody who's trying to watch us become men worth following.
Yeah.
Ryan
That's
is the founder of the Daring to Dad coaching program. You can learn more about what he's up to with the links in the show notes. Ryan, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Shaun. Thanks so much.
This has been Raising Men. I'm Shaun Dawson, and you are a great parent. Raising Men is produced by Phil Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.